Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's March 21st, 2022 in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and we're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 33, Text 11. Tatraikam sagatam bhuhum Krishnas yotpalasorabham Chandanaliptam agraya Ristaroma kukumbaha. Tatra, there. Eka, one gopi. Amsa, upon her shoulder. Gatam, placed. Bahum, the arm. Krishnasya, of Lord Krishna. Utpala, like a blue lotus. Sorabham, the fragrance of which. Chandana, was sandalwood pulp. Aliptam, smeared. Agraya, smelling. Rista, standing on end. Roma, her bodily hairs. Chuchumbaha, she kissed. Translation, BBT translation. Upon the shoulder of one gopi, Krishna placed his arm, whose natural blue lotus fragrance was mixed with that of the sandalwood pulp anointing it. As the gopi relished that fragrance, her bodily hair stood on end in jubilation, and she kissed his arm. Okay, so we're going to go to Sanatana Goswami's Tika, which is practically the same as Jiva Goswami's. This verse indicates Shamala's actions by similarity to the gopis' actions in 1032.4. So, well, we'll get to that in a moment, actually. Another placed his arm anointed with sandalwood paste on her shoulder. So that's what had been said in 1032.4. Krishna's arm had, by its nature, a fragrance superior to that of a lotus. Any of you have an arm that has a natural fragrance nicer than a lotus? Check it out. Nah. Additionally, it was decorated with sandalwood patterns. Just like you notice the pujaris often decorate the deity's form. Usually they probably use tilak instead of sandalwood, right? Yeah. Ha means clearly. The cause of her kissing Krishna was her prema. Prema means love, which made her hair stand on end. Now this is really funny. Because we had Rista Roma. Roma means hairs. So Rista Roma can mean horripilation. Your hairs stand on end like goosebumps. But listen to what Sanatana Goswami says here. Or taking the literal meaning, her hairs were joyous, Rista. The hairs were happy. What to speak of herself? So she was happy, and her little hairs were happy too. This is the Anubhava. So Anubhava means, which is interesting because Anubhava means an intentional exhibition of emotion. And generally, the hair standing on end, horripilation, is not an Anubhava, it's a Sattvika Bhava. So he's saying this is the Anubhava called Pragalbhya. And he's quoting Ujjvala Nilamani 10:21, where Pragalbhata refers to fearlessness in amorous actions. So the problem we have here is the word this. This does not refer to the horripilation. This refers to her smelling the arm, and it refers to basically her smelling the arm rather than her hair standing on end, that she took some intentional action, because the horripilation is not an anubhava, it is a sattvika bhava. Okay, we're going to read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Also her kissing the arm. So her smelling the arm and her kissing the arm is an anubhava, and the horripilation is a sattvika bhava. Sattvika bhava is involuntary expression of love. So this occurs materially also. These 5 components of rasa or taste occur both materially and spiritually. No, it's an expression. So anubhava and sattvika bhava both come from an inner experience of what's called sattva, which is not sattva gun. Sattva literally means, sat means eternal or existence or truth, and sattva means goodness, truthness, existence-ness, when you add the twa. But we talk about sattva guna. Sattva guna is the material. Maybe I should wait to talk about this too. I'm going to hold this. All right, I'm going to add an extra thing here to my plan, and I'll talk about that. We'll get there. Okay, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary is, one gopi then kissed the arm resting on her shoulder, amsagatam bahum, which was anointed with sandalwood paste. Even though that arm was anointed with sandalwood pulp, the prominent aroma of lotus, so anointed mean in designs. So sandalwood had been ground up and then there were designs. It wasn't just like smeared like, yeah. Okay. The prominent aroma of lotuses, which naturally emanates from Krishna's body, covered the fragrance of the sandalwood pulp. Since this gopi is acting in the same way as the gopi described in verse 10:32-4, she is indeed Shamala Saki. Tatraikam sagatam bahum Krishnas yotpalaso rabam chandana liptam agraha ristam roma chitumbaha. Upon the shoulder of one gopi, Krishna placed his arm, whose natural blue lotus fragrance was mixed with that of the sandalwood pulp, anointing it. As the gopi relished that fragrance, her bodily hair stood on end in jubilation, and she kissed his arm. So it's interesting. I had a plan for this class, and then when I was listening, as I do most mornings, to a class of Srila Prabhupada, I thought, what the point Prabhupada's making in this class is a much better point than I had planned to make, and I think I'll switch to that one. So Srila Prabhupada was in Dallas, which is where we had our Gurukula school. And so Srila Prabhupada was talking a lot about children, and he was talking a lot about family and how one should raise one's family to be Krishna conscious. And then Srila Prabhupada started talking about the fact that we want to give up our attachment to our material family, and we want to join Krishna's family. In this world, we have family and friends who bring us both happiness and distress. Isn't that a fact? Anybody get only happiness from their family and friends in this world? No. And what is it? 55% of all murders are between intimate romantic partners or ex-romantic partners. Or sometimes those connected with them, maybe, the brother-in-law or something, or the child. So that's pretty awful, right? More than half of all murders are between those who swore a lifetime love for each other. And this is the problem. And also our material family, of course, is temporary. We're thinking this is who I am. Like people take these DNA tests because they want to find out who I am. right? By the way, that's a very inexact science, just by the way. But, you take one of these tests and, well, I'm 25% Scandinavian and I'm 10% Nigerian and and then, oh, this is who I am. And then they'll go back to these countries and try to find I was just recently contacted by a relative who is doing our whole family tree, very complicated family tree, and she's researching everything and even getting, newspaper articles about the family and photographs of the gravestones of the deceased family members, and unbelievable what she has compiled. But the problem is that is not me. Just like we have the story in the Bhagavatam that King Chitraketu wanted a child because as the king, you were supposed to have a child to take over for you. You're not supposed to, if you have a responsible position, you're not supposed to just walk away without someone else to take it over. So he really wanted this child. But when the child was 2, the child died. And then these great sages temporarily brought the child back in the body and said, your mother and father are crying for you. And this revived child, having now achieved another perspective from being out of the body, looked at the parents and said, in which life were these my mother and father? I have had so many mothers and fathers in so many lives. So our attachment to our family and friends, our nation, we have so many wars going on in the world right now between nations, is all on a false platform. It's not fully satisfying. You can give your life to serve Russia and they'll throw you into a war and you'll lose your left leg and your right arm, right? You can go to serve your family and they'll shoot you, and literally, and then it's not even real. It's constantly changing. It's just like a drama that we're putting on different costumes. But our desire for family and friends is real. That is not false. Our concept of having family and friends where I have your back and you have my back, and we have something in common, and we do things together, we help each other, we support each other, we have a sense of belonging, we have a sense of identity according to our particular group, is eternal. It's real. There's a reality behind this strong urge in this world. And Srila Prabhupada, in the class I was hearing this morning, was going on and on about how we want to join Krishna's family. So these descriptions of Krishna being with these devotees are meant, as Prabhupada says, I think in the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, to captivate us. Just like a person will research their, in this life, biological family, because they become captivated by it. Well, why not research our spiritual family? And the variety of personality is there in our spiritual family. So we're going to look at 3 aspects of that reality. I was only going to look at 2, but now I'm going to look at 3 from your point. So first is the different types of personalities and the different types of relationships that they have with Krishna. Then there's the different types of udipanas, stimulants, which have to do with spiritual senses. So we have this Shamala. She's a particular personality. And the acharyas can tell when they read this verses, oh, that's her. Just like we can tell, right? We hear some description of someone and I know who that is. Yes? Right? Without hearing their name, without seeing their face, we hear some description. Oh, that's how they act, yes. And he's describing senses. He's describing smells and touches. Yes? So there are reality to senses and sense objects. And then the last thing I'm going to look at is the reality of taste. What is the reality of rasa? What is the whole reality of experience? So Shamala is one of the 8 principal gopis. Now, generally, in our Hare Krishna movement, if someone says the 8 principal gopis, we think of the 8 attendants or main friends of Srimati Radharani, whose deity forms are on the altar in Mayapur Dham. Yes? Generally speaking, in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we think the 8 principal gopis, we think that's who? Who are the 8 gopis on the altar? Lalita Vishaka, Rangadevi, Champagalata, Tungavidya, Chitra, Indulekha, no, you got the other group, and Sudevi. All right, but those are not the 8 principal gopis. Now, there's different lists in different scriptures of 8 or 10. But the list that we generally feel is the principal 8. So what is that list? You listed one of them. Yeah, so Radharani, Chandravali, Padma Gopi, Shamala, Bhadra, Lalita Vishaka, and Saibya. So you have Srimati Radharani with her 2 main associates, Lalita and Vishaka, Chandravali with her 2 main associates, Padma and Saibya, Bhadra and Shamala. So these gopis represent the main 4 categories of groups of gopis. Plus we have 4 that are attendants. So in the many groups of gopis who are with Krishna, and by many we really mean many. We really mean, practically speaking, uncountable. I remember when I first read Krishna book, I thought all the parts had been taken. You know, like if you go to try out for a drama and all the parts are already taken. Right? I thought all the parts are, where is there room for me? But Krishna has unlimited gopis. So Rupa Goswami says that there are 4 main categories of groups of gopis. So there's those gopis who are in Srimati Radharani's own group. And they have, practically speaking, the identical type of love to Srimati Radharani, which is called, anybody know what type of love? Starts with an M. Well, they all have Madhurya, which means sweetness. Madhu Sneha. Sneha, boy, this is getting really technical. Sneha is a degree of love, which means that your heart melts. So they have Madhu Sneha, which means honey melting. So they have a honey melting heart. And so Srimati Radharani is in that group, and those who also have this Madhu Sneha and just Madhu Sneha are in her group. Now, because she has the greatest extent of Madhu Sneha, therefore she is the leader of the group. And the other members of her group have slightly less. So the 2 chief friends who have the same Madhu Sneha, the same honey melting heart, are Lalita and Vishaka. Now, they could be group leaders, but they don't want to be. All right? Then you have the opposite kind of love. Anybody know what that is called? Griha Sneha. So Griha means Grita. Grita. Not oil. Ghee. Not oil. So they have Grita Sneha is ghee melting heart. Right? So the person who has the greatest extent of the ghee melting heart is Chandravali. And so she has the greatest extent. She's the leader of that group. And her 2 friends who have almost as much as she has are Padma and Saibya. And Padma has a similar relationship with Chandravali as Lalita has with Radharani. And Saibya has a similar relationship with Chandravali as Vishaka has. Of course, they have many, many, many other persons in their group who share their particular type of love for Krishna. We also call them, Radharani is also called a left-wing gopi, and Chandravali is also called a right-wing gopi. That's not talking about a political position. It's not that some of them are voting for Trump and some of them are voting for Biden. That, please don't take it like that. Doesn't mean that at all. Yes. And then you have some gopis who have mixtures of Grita and Madhu. So if they're mostly Madhu with a little bit of Grita, then they're friendly to Srimati Radharani. So Shamala is the most extreme of that. She has the greatest quantity of this Madhu Sneha with a little bit of Grita Sneha. So she is Radharani's friend and she has her associates. And then you have Bhadra, who has Grita Sneha with a little bit of Madhu Sneha. So she's very friendly to Chandravali. Does everybody follow this? At least the concepts, if you can't remember all the names. So Shamala is neutral to Chandravali and Bhadra is neutral to Srimati Radharani, and Radharani and Chandravali are opposed to each other. And they're opposed to each other because they don't like the way the other person serves Krishna. Just like here, we have certain devotees who dress the deities very opulently. Whenever they dress the deities, you think there must be a festival going on today. Yes? And there's other pujaris who dress the deities very simply. So you could imagine that the devotees who like to dress the deities very opulently, when they see the deities dressed very simply, they may think, they don't know how to dress Krishna nicely. Right? Or with cooking. Some people like to cook in one way, some people like to cook in another way. And they don't know how to cook to please Krishna. So that's the way in the opposition they feel, oh, Krishna wants the honey love. Why are they giving him the ghee love? Krishna doesn't want ghee love, he wants honey love. And the other party thinks Krishna doesn't want honey love, he wants ghee love. Does that, you all follow? Yes? But sometimes they all get along. So in this Rasa Leela, they're all getting along. Actually, I was just studying this yesterday in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that if you have opposing tastes, they can be tasteful if they're both serving someone else. And his example was, you could have two servants of a king who are natural enemies, but when they're working together to serve the king, it's not distasteful. And we experience this in our life, right? That people who normally don't get along, when they have a common center. I mean, I'm sure there's some people in our Hare Krishna movement that we would never associate with outside of the Hare Krishna movement. I wouldn't have anything to do with this person. But because we're working to serve Krishna together, we're able to work together. Everybody have this experience? Or the same could be in a company or in a family. You know, like, this person wasn't in my family, I don't think I'd have anything to do with them. But because they're part of the family, you associate with them. Yes, so this also happens in Krishna's pastimes, sometimes. So sometimes they're helping each other and they're working together, and other times they're in opposition. So there's a lot of information about Shamala in Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani, which there's no way I would have time to give a class on all of that. But I just wanted to read something from Ujjvala Nilamani about Shamala. O Mukunda, when the sun of your face rises before her, it is not surprising that the butter of Shama's heart begins to melt. This is about their sneha. When the moon of Shamala's face rises before you, the moonstone of your heart at first begins to melt and then becomes a hard stone again. So what Rupa Goswami is saying is that when Shamala meets Krishna, her heart immediately melts. And when Krishna meets Shamala, his heart melts and then it becomes stunned. That Krishna has actually more love for Shamala than she has for him. Which is also quite interesting. I mean, Srila Prabhupada often says that Krishna is 10 times more eager to have us than we are to have him. So whatever love anyone can have for Krishna, Krishna always can have more love for them. I was talking to one devotee yesterday. He was going through a crisis. And I said to him, you are infinitely loved by Krishna. He was worried that people were saying bad things about him. I said, frankly, probably no one's saying anything about you. Probably no one is paying any attention to you at all. I said, but there's one person paying attention to you always, and that's Krishna. I said, he's in your heart. He's paying attention to everything you do and everything you think and everything you want, and he actually finds it interesting. Whereas most of our friends in this world do not find what we think and what we want and what we do particularly interesting, isn't it? I try to tell somebody every detail of what you did yesterday. They'll become very bored very fast. But Krishna is paying attention to every little thing. I said, Krishna loves you infinitely. So it's like that even in this highest exchange. So we don't have time today to go into all of these details, but the books are there for that purpose. The reason that our acharyas are telling us, oh, this is behavior typical of Shamala. That Krishna's putting his arm on her shoulder and she's smelling his arm and kissing his arm. Oh, I know that, Gopi, that's Shamala. That's how our acharyas are responding. So we are meant to be studying these literatures so that we get to know our real family members. That's why we're meant to be studying them. It's not an intellectual exercise or a scholarly exercise. That's not what it's about. It's about reviving our attraction for all of these personalities so that we're like, yes, I want to join my real family. I want to know my real family. And we should have at least as much enthusiasm for this as people have for finding out their family tree and their ancestry and their personality in this life and all of these sorts of things. So then these personalities have spiritual bodies with spiritual senses. What are they doing? As so many religious or spiritual people, they talk about some higher realm. And if you ask them, what are people doing there? When first joined the Hare Krishna movement and I was distributing Prabhupada's books in O'Hare Airport, I remember meeting some group of, I don't remember what sect of Christianity they were, and they say, well, we're going to heaven. I said, what will you do there? And they said, the same thing we're doing here. And I said, will you watch television? And they just stopped, they just didn't know what to say. So what are the activities? So we look at the personalities of the spiritual world, then what are the activities? And we find that they're, just like in this world, we are captivated by our physical senses and our physical sense objects. This is, right? Isn't this what we're doing? We're working on developing and maintaining relationships with other people or animals or plants, other living beings. And we're also working at trying to match our senses with appropriate sense objects. Isn't that like our whole business? That's like all that we're doing, really. Having relationships and trying to match our senses with the appropriate sense objects. We want to taste things that we like, smell things that we like, touch things that we like, see things that we like, hear things that we like. And there's such a variety of sense objects, and each of us has a particular taste in that regard. The things I like to smell, you might not like to smell. The things I like to taste, you might not like to taste. Right? Isn't it? Right? We have some variety. That's why, you go to these stores and they have so many different kinds of everything. Isn't it? And why they don't just sell one kind of clothing and one kind of perfume and, one kind of food. So this exists also in reality. Now here we're focused on Krishna's smell and how Shamala is relishing the smell of Krishna's what? His arm. That's important, that it was his arm. And what is it? What did his arm smell like? Blue lotuses, and also there was some smell of sandalwood that was used to decorate him. Now, the sandalwood you buy today is mostly cheating. They've mostly extracted the scented oil from the sandalwood, and then they just sell you the wood. Most of the natural fragrances mentioned in the Shastra are not available anymore, or they're available in small quantities at very high prices. Now, all of these natural fragrances actually change one's consciousness. People would use oils and incense as aid to meditation. I had some devotees visit me, Saturday, and I had been burning frankincense. And one of the devotees said, I'm normally allergic to incense, but this isn't bothering me, and I'm feeling so happy. I said, yeah, that's because it's the real thing. So Krishna he says, I'm the fragrance of the earth, the fragrance that goes into sandalwood and frankincense and jasmine and lotuses is all coming from him. So imagine what his fragrance will be. And I really like, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has a purport to 2935, which is the last verse of the Chatur Sloki, that one should look for this everywhere and in everything. And in his purport, a little piece of his purport, he's saying how Krishna feels. And he says, I desire to show myself to my obedient devotees who have entered my heart. No, this is the one, this is not the last verse. It's the one, it's the third verse. I have, that all the elements enter into the creation and yet stay separate. It's the Achinta Beta Beta Tattva. So Krishna is saying, I desire to show myself to my obedient devotees who have entered my heart, who have perfected themselves and bowed to me, remaining separate, not entering their hearts. I desire to offer my beauty to their eyes. I desire that my fragrance enter their nostrils. So although Krishna is in our heart, which is the fourth stage of meditation, to see Krishna in the heart, the fifth stage of meditation is when you see Krishna face to face, not in the heart, and not only do you see him, you smell him. And Krishna very much wants to be smelled by his devotees. Think of, again, in ordinary life, why do people put on perfume? They want other people to smell them. Correct? Am I correct? Yes? And all scented, scented shampoos and scented lotions. And why? They want someone else to say, wow, you smell good. Isn't it? Yes? Even I have some problem with my arm, and I put herbal oils on it. And when I went to see the physical therapist, she said, you smell really good. What is that? She said, is it all right to put heat on your arm, or will that aggravate it? And I was happy. I was thinking, oh, I'm so happy someone thinks I smell good. So Krishna also feels happy when we smell him. Fascinating, huh? All right, we have Lord Chaitanya in Antya 1999. He was looking for Krishna. He couldn't see him, but he could smell him. In Govinda Lilamrita 17:9, it says, from all of Krishna's limbs, there's the fragrance of a musk-scented lotus. From his eyebrows, his armpits, and his middle, there's the scent of a guru-scented parijata. Now, we could give a whole class on all these different scents. From his nose, navel, face, hands, feet, and eyes, it's a camphor-scented lotus. And all of these scents combine in waves of an ocean of great fragrance. So often we have the description of Chatusama as Krishna's scent, which is musk, sandalwood, which is not mentioned in this Govinda Lilamrita, a guru, which is also called ud, or aloes wood, and camphor, which is fascinating because those are all woodsy smells. Sandalwood is a tree, a guru is the fungus on a tree, camphor is coming from a tree, and musk is coming from an animal. They're very masculine, woodsy scent, but they're all mixed with blue lotus, which is a flower. And finally, just briefly, we're going to mention the reality of rasa. So in this world, we taste rasa, it's our happiness, but there's spiritual rasa, which the impetus is Krishna, his devotees like Shamala, these stimulants like his fragrance. If one already has love for Krishna, then those stimulants create a sense of sattva, not sattva guna, but sattva, truthfulness, beingness in the heart. This affects the body and the mind, which then experiences a variety of emotions and demonstrates those emotions both as voluntary actions, like kissing Krishna's arm, and involuntary actions, like our hairs standing on end.